Joe Miller stepped onto his porch that Tuesday morning, coffee mug in hand, ready for another quiet day in his small Ohio town. The sky turned dark suddenly. Joe looked up and dropped his mug. It shattered on the wooden boards. A ship hung in the sky, not like planes or even the biggest military aircraft Joe had seen during his Army days. This thing blocked the sun. It was massive, gray-black, with strange blue lights pulsing along its edges. "Mary," Joe called to his wife inside. "Mary, you need to see this." All across Earth, people stopped and stared upward. In New York City, cars halted in the streets. In a small village in Kenya, farmers pointed at the sky. In Beijing, millions of phones aimed upward to record the sight. The Valturian fleet had arrived. 7 huge ships positioned themselves above major cities around the world. Each ship was as big as a small moon. Their shadows turned day into night in the areas below them. Every TV channel, radio station, and phone on Earth suddenly showed the same thing. A tall, blue-skinned creature with 4 yellow eyes appeared on screens worldwide. He wore armor that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. "Humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Admiral Krell of the Valturian Imperium. We rule 17 star systems. For thousands of years, we have searched the galaxy for worthy fighters to test our battle skills." Krell's upper eyes blinked slowly. "Your species is young and primitive, but you fight well. We have watched your wars. We have studied your soldiers. Now we offer you a choice." The alien's voice grew colder. "Surrender your planet and serve us, or face us in combat for your freedom." In the White House Situation Room, President Diane Powell watched the broadcast with a tight jaw. 6 months into her first term, and now this. The room was packed with military leaders, scientists, and advisors. Everyone looked pale and scared. "Madam President," said General Frank Murphy, "we're getting reports of these ships worldwide. They're just sitting there, waiting." Murphy was 65 with a scarred face and hands that had seen real war. He'd fought in 3 major conflicts before becoming the president's top military advisor. "What do we know about their weapons?" President Powell asked. A NASA scientist stepped forward with a tablet. "The energy readings are off the charts. Their smallest ship could probably wipe out a continent." "Have they made any aggressive moves?" the president asked. "No, ma'am," Murphy said. "Just this message, broadcasting on repeat." Another screen lit up with a new transmission. Admiral Krell appeared. "Again? You have 7 Earth days to decide," the alien said. "If you accept our challenge, you will face 5 tests against our champions. Win 3, and we leave your world forever. Lose, and Earth joins our empire." "And if we just tell them to go away?" asked Defense Secretary William Grant, a tall man with thick glasses. "Their weapons could destroy us 10 times over," Murphy said, looking at the latest intelligence reports. "We don't have anything that could even dent those ships." At NASA headquarters, Dr. Samantha Green worked with a team analyzing the alien ships. She pushed her curly red hair away from her face as she studied the data. "These ships are at least 500 years ahead of our technology," she told her team. "But something doesn't add up. Why would beings this advanced care about physical combat? They could just take what they want." In her office, President Powell met privately with General Murphy and a small group of her most trusted advisors. "We can't win a direct fight," she said, "and we can't let them destroy our planet. So we accept their challenge." "Madam President," Murphy said, "they'll expect us to send our strongest, fastest current soldiers, young men and women in their physical prime." The president smiled slightly. "Then we'll surprise them." "What if we don't send our active troops?" Murphy frowned. "Who would we send?" "Veterans," she said. "Not just any veterans. Those with real combat experience. Men and women who've faced impossible odds and survived. People who know that winning isn't always about being the strongest." "The aliens want a show of force," she continued. "They want to face our strongest warriors. But true combat mastery isn't about strength or speed. It's about experience, adaptability, finding ways to win when everything goes wrong." Murphy's eyes widened as he understood. "They're expecting our rules of engagement, our standard tactics. They've studied our wars, but they've never faced soldiers who think outside the box. Exactly, Powell said. I'm authorizing Operation Veteran Shield effective immediately. Find me the most experienced combat veterans we have. People who've seen real war, not just training. People who've improvised in the field, who've survived when they shouldn't have. She stood and looked out the window at the massive ship hovering over Washington, D.C. The Valturians think they understand human combat because they've watched us, she said. But they've never fought alongside us. They've never seen what happens when human backs are against the wall. General Murphy nodded. I'll start making calls. I know just the people. As night fell across America, the alien ships glowed blue against the dark sky. In homes, bars, and shelters, people huddled together, watching the news, wondering what would happen next. And in a secure military facility, Operation Veteran Shield began. Lists of names were compiled. Calls went out across the country. Old soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who thought their fighting days were over received unexpected messages. Earth would fight, not with missiles or bombs, but with something the aliens had never encountered. The hard-earned wisdom of those who had already survived the worst that war could offer. The old military base in Nevada had been empty for years. Now buses and planes arrived day and night. Men and women stepped off, carrying small bags, looking around with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jack Harris climbed down from the bus and felt the hot desert air hit his face. At 65, his hair was gray and his face weathered with deep lines. But he stood straight and tall, the way he had for 40 years as a Special Forces soldier. Colonel Harris? A young soldier approached him. Sir, I'm here to take you to the briefing area. Jack nodded. How many have arrived so far? You're number 36, sir. They're hoping for 50 by tonight. Inside a large hangar, chairs had been set up in rows. Jack looked around at the others already there. Every face told a story. These weren't fresh young soldiers. These were people who had seen real war. Maria Diaz sat near the front. At 48, she still kept her black hair in the tight bun she had worn as a Marine sniper. The Silver Star Medal had been awarded to her 3 times for bravery in combat. She had retired 10 years ago and now taught shooting at a small gun range in Arizona. Maria noticed Jack and nodded to him. They had never met, but veterans could often recognize each other without words. Mind if I sit here? Jack asked, pointing to the empty chair next to her. Free country, Maria said with a small smile. At least for now. Across the room, Alan Wright studied a paper with information about the aliens. At 53, the former Navy submarine commander was used to thinking about battles in 3 dimensions. Next to him sat Kate Miller, a 50-year-old former Air Force pilot who had flown more than 200 combat missions. What do you think? Kate asked Alan, nodding toward the information sheets. These aliens seem pretty confident. Alan shrugged. Everyone's confident until the first shot is fired. Then we see who can really fight. Near them, Christopher Barnes made notes in a small book. The 55-year-old had spent 15 years in Army intelligence, learning how enemies think and finding their weak spots. The door opened, and everyone sat up straighter as General Murphy walked in with Dr. Green. The soldiers might be retired, but respect for rank never fully disappeared. Thank you all for coming, General Murphy said. I know many of you were enjoying your retirement. I'm sorry to pull you back in, but Earth needs you. He nodded to Dr. Green, who stepped forward. The red-haired scientist clicked a button, and a large screen showed pictures of the alien ships. The Valturians believe they are the greatest warriors in the galaxy, she said. They have conquered 17 star systems by challenging each planet to ritual combat. If the planet wins, they leave it alone. If the planet loses, they take over. And they picked a fight with us, a veteran called from the back. Bad move. A few people laughed, but most stayed serious. Why us? Asked a woman in the third row. Why not send active duty soldiers? They're younger, stronger, in better shape. General Murphy looked around the room. Because the Valturians have studied our current military, they know our training, our weapons, our tactics. But they've never faced people like you. Jack Harris stood up. Veterans, he said, people who've seen real war. Not just training exercises or simulations, but actual combat where everything goes wrong and you have to figure it out or die. Exactly, Murphy said. The Valturians think combat is about being the strongest or fastest. But all of you know the truth. Maria Diaz spoke up. It's about adapting, about finding a way to win even when you're hurt, tired, outnumbered, and out of supplies. It's about dirty tricks, added Barnes, about doing what the enemy doesn't expect. It's about endurance, said Kate Miller, outlasting the enemy even when you think you can't go on. Dr. Green nodded. Our analysis shows the Valturians have a very rigid fighting style. They train from birth in perfect conditions with perfect equipment. They've never experienced the chaos of real battle. Then they've never really fought, Jack said quietly, but everyone heard him. Over the next 3 days, more veterans arrived. By the end, 50 men and women had gathered at the base. They ranged in age from 35 to 70, with experience from conflicts around the world. They spent their days learning everything they could about the Valturians. Dr. Green showed them videos of alien combat techniques. The aliens were fast, strong, and had technology far beyond Earth's. They expect us to send our best current soldiers, General Murphy told them. Young, strong, at their physical peak. When they see you instead, they'll think we're insulting them or playing a joke. Let them, said Alan Wright. Underestimating your enemy is the first step to losing. The veterans worked together to develop strategies. They didn't try to match the aliens' strength or speed. Instead, they focused on what humans did best, adapting, improvising, and using unexpected tactics. They practiced in the desert heat, pushing their older bodies to the limit. Some struggled with old injuries acting up. Others found they couldn't move as quickly as they once did, but none complained or quit. On the 5th day, as the deadline from the aliens approached, President Powell visited the base. She walked slowly, down the rows of veterans, looking each one in the eye. I won't give you a long speech, she said. You've all heard plenty of those in your careers. I'll just say this. Many people think I made a mistake choosing veterans for this mission. They think we should send our youngest, strongest soldiers. She paused and looked around the room. But I know something they don't. The greatest weapon in any fight isn't youth or strength or even technology. It's experience. It's knowing what to do when everything falls apart. It's finding a way to win when all seems lost. Jack Harris watched the president speak and felt a familiar feeling in his chest. It wasn't fear. He had learned to live with fear long ago. It was purpose. One last mission. One last chance to use all he had learned in a lifetime of war to protect his home. As President Powell finished speaking, Maria Diaz leaned over to Jack. Ready for one more fight, old man? Jack smiled slightly. Born ready. The next morning, they would face the Valturians, not as individual soldiers, but as representatives of every human who had ever fought, suffered, and survived. They would show the aliens what real combat mastery meant. The morning arrived with a clear blue sky. A strange metal platform descended from the main Valturian ship. It hovered above a large field outside Las Vegas. The platform was as big as a football stadium, with glowing blue edges. Admiral Krell's voice boomed across the world. Humans of Earth, the time for combat trials has come. Your champions will face our warriors in 5 challenges. The species that wins the majority will determine the fate of your planet. News cameras surrounded the area. Billions of people around the world watched on screens of all sizes. Some prayed, others held hands. Everyone wondered if Earth's plan to send veterans would work or backfire terribly. A beam of light connected the alien ship to the platform. 5 tall Valturians appeared, each wearing different colored armor. Their skin was blue, their eyes yellow, and they stood at least 8 feet tall. The Earth team arrived in simple black uniforms. When the aliens saw the gray hair and lined faces of the human team, they turned to each other in confusion. What is this? Asked the lead Valturian, his voice translated through speakers. You send your old ones to face us? This is an insult. General, Murphy stepped forward. These are our veterans, warriors who have proven themselves in real combat. There is no greater honor than to be represented by them. The alien leader seemed unsure but nodded. The first challenge will test strength. One champion from each side. A Valturian in red armor stepped forward. He was 9 feet tall with 4 muscular arms. His chest was twice as wide as a human's. From the Earth team, Paul Lewis stepped up. At 52, the former Army Ranger still looked strong, but nothing like the alien giant. Before joining the military, Paul had played football in college. After 20 years as a ranger, he had become a wilderness survival teacher. The Valturian announced, "The rules. Each champion must move these stones across the line." He pointed to 10 round stones, each looking like it weighed at least 500 pounds. "You have 5 minutes. The one who moves the most stones wins." The alien went first. With his 4 powerful arms, he easily lifted 2 stones at once. In less than 3 minutes, he had moved all 5 of his stones across the line. The Valturians cheered. Paul Lewis didn't touch his stones. Instead, he walked slowly around the field, looking carefully at everything. The aliens whispered to each other, thinking he had given up before starting. Then Paul did something unexpected. He walked to the line marker, a glowing blue strip on the ground, and simply picked it up. He carried the line marker to the other side of the stones and placed it there. Now all 5 of his stones were already across the line. The crowd gasped. The Valturians erupted in angry shouts. "This is cheating," the 4-armed alien roared. Paul shrugged. "You said to move the stones across the line. You didn't say I couldn't move the line. Check your rules." The aliens huddled together, reviewing their own rules carefully. After several tense minutes, they returned. "The human is technically correct," the leader admitted. "The rules did not forbid moving the line itself." Earth had won the first challenge. People around the world cheered and laughed at the clever solution. The Valturians looked angry as they announced the second challenge. A test of precision. Hit as many targets as possible while moving through an obstacle course. Maria Diaz stepped forward for Earth. The 48-year-old former Marine sniper looked calm and focused. The alien champion wore a helmet with a glowing targeting system built into it. The course was set up with moving targets that popped up randomly. Each competitor had a laser weapon that would register hits. The Valturian went first again. He moved, with incredible speed, his targeting system lighting up each target before he fired. He hit 47 out of 50 targets, missing only when 2 appeared at exactly the same time. When Maria's turn came, she took a moment to study the course. Then she moved forward steadily, not rushing like the alien had. Her movements were smooth and efficient. Halfway through the course, something unexpected happened. Dust began to fill the air, making it hard to see. Later, people would wonder if the aliens had planned this to make it harder for the human. The Valturians watched confidently, knowing their champion's targeting system worked in any conditions. But Maria didn't panic. In real combat, she had dealt with sandstorms, smoke, and darkness. When she could no longer see clearly, she closed her eyes. She began to listen for the slight whirring sound each target made before it appeared. Moving more slowly now, but with perfect focus, she fired at sounds rather than sights. The crowd was silent, wondering what she was doing. When she finished the course, the scoreboard showed her result: 50 out of 50 targets hit. Perfect score. The human crowd erupted in cheers. General Murphy smiled proudly. Maria returned to her team, where Jack Harris patted her shoulder. "Not bad for an old Marine," he said with a small smile. "I've shot in worse conditions," she replied. "Try taking out a target during a hurricane sometime." The Valturians were no longer amused. Their leader's 4 eyes narrowed as he stared at the human team. 2 challenges complete. Admiral Krell announced from the ship above. Earth leads 2-0. The aliens huddled together, speaking in harsh whispers. They had expected easy victories against the primitive humans. Instead, these older warriors were using methods they had never considered. As they prepared for the third challenge, Jack Harris watched the aliens carefully. "They're angry now," he told his team. "That's when enemies make mistakes. Let's be ready." The score stood at 2-0 for Earth. The real test was just beginning. The aliens were angry now. They had lost 2 challenges to the humans they had called primitive. The leader of the Valturian team spoke in harsh tones to his warriors. His yellow eyes kept glancing at the Earth team with growing hatred. "The third challenge will test tactical thinking," Admiral Krell announced from the ship above. "Each side will send one champion to capture objectives on a simulated battlefield." The arena platform changed. A miniature landscape appeared with hills, rivers, forests, and small buildings. Tiny lights marked the objectives that needed to be captured. Christopher Barnes stepped forward for Earth. At 55, the former intelligence officer had spent 15 years planning operations against enemies who had better weapons and more soldiers. His calm eyes studied the battlefield carefully. The Valturian champion wore blue armor with gold markings. Admiral Krell introduced him with pride. "This is Commander Zax, our greatest tactical mind. He has never lost a simulated battle in 300 years of combat." Barnes showed no reaction. He had heard similar boasts before, from enemies who were now long dead. The rules were simple. Capture 5 objectives within 30 minutes. Both competitors would control holographic soldiers to carry out their orders. Commander Zax had twice as many soldiers as Barnes. The challenge began. The Valturian immediately sent his forces in perfect formations toward the objectives. His holographic soldiers moved with machine-like precision, advancing quickly across the simulated terrain. Barnes did something strange. He sent most of his forces away from the objectives, into the forests and behind hills. The human crowd watched in confusion. It looked like he was giving up the objectives without a fight. Commander Zax captured the first objective easily. Then, the second. He looked at Barnes with his yellow eyes, clearly thinking the human was stupid. "Your Earth champion seems confused," Admiral Krell said to General Murphy. "Perhaps your veterans are too old to understand modern warfare." Murphy just smiled slightly. "Watch and learn." As Zax's forces approached the third objective, Barnes made his move. His hidden soldiers emerged from the forests and hills, attacking from unexpected directions. They didn't try to kill all of Zax's forces. Instead, they cut supply lines, blocked communication, and created confusion. While Zax tried to deal with these surprise attacks, Barnes sent a small team to capture an objective behind the aliens' lines. The Valturian commander had to split his forces, sending some back to retake the lost objective. This was exactly what Barnes wanted. With Zax's forces now spread thin, Barnes launched his main attack. His soldiers captured 2 more objectives, in quick succession. Commander Zax tried to adjust his perfect plan, but he had never faced an enemy who used such unpredictable tactics. Every time he moved forces to solve one problem, Barnes created a new problem somewhere else. When the time ran out, Earth had captured 3 objectives to the Valturians' 2. Barnes had won using fewer soldiers against the supposedly unbeatable alien commander. The human crowd cheered wildly. Earth now led the challenges 3-0. One more victory would secure Earth's freedom. Admiral Krell's voice boomed across the arena, no longer calm and confident, but filled with anger. "This is not fair combat," he shouted. "You humans are using tricks and deception instead of honorable tactics." On a large screen, President Powell appeared. Her face was calm, but her eyes were firm. "Admiral Krell," she said, "there is nothing dishonorable about using intelligence to overcome a stronger opponent. This is how humans have always fought." Krell's 4 yellow eyes narrowed. "You have not sent your current warriors to face us. These are past prime fighters, old and weak. This is an insult to the Valturian Imperium." "We never claimed they were our active duty soldiers," President Powell replied. "These are our veterans, warriors who have survived real combat, not simulations. There is no greater test of combat mastery than survival." The Admiral was furious now. His blue skin had turned almost purple with anger. "The 4th challenge will change," he announced. "No more tests of skill or strategy. Now we will have true combat. To submission or death." The Earth team looked at each other with concern. This wasn't part of the agreement, but they had known the aliens might not play fair if they started losing. "We will select your oldest team member," Admiral Krell said, pointing at Jack Harris. "He will face our deadliest warrior." Jack stepped forward without hesitation. At 65, he was indeed the oldest human champion. His gray hair shone in the sunlight, but his eyes were sharp, and his stance was ready. The Valturian champion who stepped forward was terrifying. 7 feet tall with armor covered in spikes and blades. He carried energy weapons in each of his 4 hands. "This is Drac," Admiral Krell said with a cruel smile. "He has killed champions from 12 different planets." Jack was given only a combat knife and basic body armor. The crowd fell silent, thinking they were about to watch the old soldier die. Maria Diaz grabbed Jack's arm before he entered the combat circle. "This isn't fair," she said quietly. Jack just nodded. "It never is. That's why they don't understand real combat." The fight began. Drac moved with incredible speed, his blades and energy weapons creating a deadly storm around him. Jack didn't try to attack. He simply moved, conserving energy, watching his opponent. The alien attacked again and again, growing more frustrated as Jack avoided his strikes by the narrowest margins. The old soldier moved with an economy that came from decades of real fighting, where wasted motion meant death. "Stand and fight, human," Drac roared after 5 minutes of failed attacks. Jack said nothing. He continued to watch and wait. Every fighter had patterns. Every fighter made mistakes eventually. The key was surviving long enough to see them. In the 7th minute, it happened. Frustrated by his inability to hit the human, Drac launched an all-out attack, extending himself too far. Jack saw the opening and moved with sudden, deadly precision. His knife found the small gap between armor plates near the alien's shoulder. Drac howled in pain and fury. Jack didn't press the advantage. He stepped back, knife ready, waiting for the next opening. The pattern repeated. Drac attacked with growing rage. Jack avoided, watched, and struck only when absolutely certain. Each cut was small but perfectly placed to weaken the alien's armor or limit his movement. 20 minutes into the fight, Drac was bleeding from a dozen small wounds. His movements were slower. Jack had not escaped unharmed. His left arm was burned from an energy weapon, and a cut on his forehead was bleeding into his eye. But Jack was winning. Everyone could see it now. The old human was outlasting the supposedly superior alien warrior. With one final desperate attack, Drac lunged forward. Jack sidestepped, grabbed one of the alien's arms, and used the momentum to throw Drac to the ground. Before the alien could rise, Jack's knife was at his throat. "Yield," Jack said simply. The crowd held its breath. After a long moment, Drac nodded. Slightly Earth had won the 4th challenge. The score was 4-0. The human crowds around the world erupted in cheers. Earth was free. The veterans had proven that true combat mastery came from experience, not from perfect training or advanced technology. Admiral Krell looked down at his defeated champion with cold eyes. The Valturians would have to rethink everything they thought they knew about combat. The next morning, a message came from the Valturian flagship. Admiral Krell wanted to meet with Earth's leaders and the veteran team. The meeting would happen on the alien ship. President Powell, General Murphy, and the Earth champions rode a small shuttle up to the massive alien vessel. Jack Harris looked out the window as Earth grew smaller below them. Even after all his years of combat, this was something new. Inside the Valturian ship, the walls glowed with strange blue light. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into shadows. Admiral Krell waited in a large round room with other Valturian leaders. The Admiral looked different today, less proud, more thoughtful. "Humans of Earth," he said when everyone had gathered. "You have won our challenge fairly. 4 victories, no defeats. According to our sacred combat laws, we must leave your planet in peace." President Powell nodded. "We appreciate your honoring the agreement, Admiral." Krell looked at the veterans, his yellow eyes moving from face to face. "But I have called you here for another reason. I am confused." "About what?" asked General Murphy. "For thousands of years, the Valturian Imperium has believed we understood combat mastery better than any species in the galaxy. We train our warriors from birth in perfect conditions. They learn every weapon, every tactic, every strategy." Jack Harris stepped forward. "But they never learn what matters most." "And what is that, human?" Krell asked. "How to survive when everything goes wrong," Jack said. Real combat isn't clean or perfect, it's messy, chaotic, and brutal. You don't win by being strongest. You win by adapting when your plans fail. Maria Diaz joined him. Your warriors have never been hungry, exhausted, or wounded while fighting for their lives. They've never had to make impossible choices or live with those choices afterward. They've never had to win with just a knife when the enemy has a gun, added Paul Lewis. Or find a way forward when the mission has gone bad and half your team is down. Admiral Krell listened carefully. For the first time in centuries, the Valturians faced the possibility that their understanding of combat was wrong. Their perfect training created perfect soldiers for perfect conditions, conditions that never existed in real war. I have made a decision, Krell announced. The Valturian Imperium will honor our agreement. Earth will remain free. The humans nodded, but Krell wasn't finished. But I propose something new. Not conquest, but exchange. I wish to learn this concept you call veterancy, the wisdom that comes only from surviving real combat. President Powell looked surprised. What kind of exchange? Send some of your veterans to teach our warriors. Not your weapons or technology, but your experience, your adaptability, your human spirit that finds a way to win even when outmatched. After discussion, President Powell agreed to a limited program. Selected Valturian warriors would train with human veterans, learning not just how to fight, but how to think beyond their perfect training. As the alien fleet prepared to leave Earth, Jack Harris stood at a window on the space station, watching the massive ships pull away. Maria Diaz joined him. They came looking for the greatest warriors in the galaxy, Jack said quietly. And what did they find instead? Maria asked. Something better. They found that true combat mastery isn't about winning every battle. It's about surviving defeat, learning from it, and coming back stronger. Maria nodded. Something every veteran knows all too well. Across Earth, people celebrated their planet's unexpected victory. But for the veterans who had faced the aliens, there was a deeper feeling. After years of feeling forgotten, their experiences, even their pain and scars, had saved humanity. The message spread throughout the galaxy. Earth was not to be taken lightly. Not because of its weapons or technology, but because of the unbreakable spirit of its veterans. Those who had faced the worst that combat could offer and survived, carrying with them the true meaning of combat mastery.